Is it good? Is it bad? Should I go see Gladiator 2? How does it hold up against the first? All of this will be answered, but first, before I dive right into explaining Gladiator 2, it's important that you understand Jerry. Back in high school, we had a kid named Jerry. He was a new kid and a bit weird. Everyone made fun of him. Students, teachers, principals, janitorial staff, everyone collectively enjoyed hurling verbal stones at him. All because they thought he was weird. But not me, you see. Me being a better man, I first got to know him. And then I made fun of him. I bring this up because it seemingly parallels quite well in regards to the response to Gladiator 2. There seems to be a growing trend amongst the film critique community where it's become popular to shit on films, though some deserve it, no doubt. Some receive an undeserving amount of hate. I worry that the same way mainstream critics fluff up their reviews for the sake of favor of their community, my fellow independent critics might be falling for the same trap. If the name of the game is to cast stones at anything that slights us in the least bit, well then, we'll have arms like this guy. I say all this because I may be amongst the few to deem Gladiator 2 a fair movie. Dare I even say a worthy successor. Blasphemy to so many of my colleagues, I know, but f*** off. You, people, you're the same kind of people that would pick on Jerry. I mean, I picked on him too, but, I got to know him first. Yes, this film has some flaws here and there, but does it really deserve the level of outrage that it got? Keep in mind, it had the damn near impossible task of following up its predecessor, one of the greatest films of all time. I think what's really happening here in regards to all the outrage is that we, the audience, are just about so fed up with all the sequels and reboots that at the announcement of any sequel or reboot, we instinctively just roll our eyes and die a little inside! It's all we can do, really. The lack of originality in filmmaking is a problem, as is digging up old IPs is too. In part because far too often we feel that it lessens the legacy of the achievement of its predecessor. And rather that legacy being honored, growing, or flourishing with every sequel or addition, we just witness its erosion. The easiest example to point to is Daniel Craig's James Bond. Instead of being a charming, charismatic, flirtatious assassin, shagging and bagging every other gal, he's now become something resembling more of a neutered emotional support animal. A step-up stool for strong female characters.
You were 00.
2 years. So stay in your lane. You get in my way, I will put a bullet in your knee. The one that works.
I thought you two would get along.
And a bit of a joke in comparison to Ian Fleming's original imagining of the character. Anyway, I digress. Rumors of a Gladiator sequel have been circling for a while now, and after 24 years since the original, we finally got to see what all that prep time would yield. And what we got was this. Never have I seen a film over-deliver in some aspects and completely underperform in others, making it possibly the most mid film I've ever seen. Some shitty dialogue here and there and some subpar performances, okay, and possibly Denzel Washington's only bad role, but I mean, it's okay, you've done a lot for us, Denzel. I really liked you in Avengers. But there are some points in this film that are so genius, so clever, it completely went over the audience's heads. If you judge this film without consideration to these aspects that you may have missed, you may just be robbing yourself. And so, to bring you the ultimate breakdown and film review of Gladiator 2, Dropout Bus will fly. Alright, you get the idea. Let's hop right into it. The plot is simple. The kid from the first one, Lucius, disappeared after the events of the first film, because it ended with Commodus, his uncle, dying, making him the next in line for the throne. And being that young and the heir to such power, it's the equivalent of having damning information about the Clintons. You're just not gonna make it, man. To avoid getting Epsteined, he took off and, many years later, ended up in Africa. Here he has a new life. He's a member of this community, has friends, and a wife. All is going great until, the Roman army shows up. Leading them is this guy, General Acacius, played by Pedro Pascal. A pretty badass battle unfolds, and in the midst of it, General Acacius realizes that he is being targeted by a particular archer. He orders his men to fire upon this individual and take him out. Unfortunately for Lucius, this archer was his wife. Oh no! Some women just really gotta stick their business into everything their husband does. Bitch, stay home! Where you going? I'm going to fight the Romans! I'm coming with you. Anyway, she dies, and Lucius gets sold into slavery. And he gets bought by this guy. Definitely has a name, but we're just gonna call him Denzel. Denzel plays like this power-hungry businessman who was once a slave and just worked his way up. I mentioned it earlier, Denzel did not do a good job with this one, really dropped the ball. Instead of Gladiator 2, he must have thought it was Training Day 2. He sounded like a modern day guy from the Bronx or Queen, like, all right, we're gonna feed some sharks with some gladiators. Monkeys and sharks ain't got nothing on me!
King Kong ain't got shit on me!
Of all the films to drop the ball on, it had to be this one. Anyway, he buys him, Denzel grows a liking to him, and the two strike a deal. Lucius keeps winning in the Gladiator games, and Denzel will see to it that Acacius gets delivered to him. Plot twist! Acacius is now married to Lucius's mom. Oh, damn. Double plot twist! The two are involved with a group of senators to overthrow the dueling emperors of Rome. Basically, in simpler terms, they were planning a Jan 6 on these f***ers. In the midst of the arena games, Lucilla, aka Mom, realizes that Lucius is probably her son. Afterwards, she visits him in his holding cell. She inquires about who he is and hopes that her suspicions are true. Lucius pretends like, I don't know what you're talking about, but a mother knows her boy. All the while this is going on, Denzel uncovers the mutiny plot. Dueling emperors are pissed off and outraged by this, that their General Acacius would make a stand against them, and so they have him thrown into the arena, thus inadvertently fulfilling Denzel's end of the deal with Lucius. Acacius is now delivered right to him. Acacius, knowing that that is his wife's son, doesn't want to fight. Lucius still attacks him, but Acacius only defends himself. He pleads with Lucius not to fight, and then at a certain point, he just yields his sword. He tells him that he genuinely loves his mother and very much respected his father, General Maximus Decimus Meridius. This is a bit of a surprise to him because he thought his dad was someone else. Turns out that guy was into men. Not joking, that's a real thing in the movie. But the dueling emperors are not so thrilled with displays of mercy. They came here for blood, so they ordered the Praetorian Guard to shoot Acacius. And this scene is awesome. This is one of the few things that went completely over people's heads. The significance of this scene. So much is happening here. The only thing Lucius wanted this entire time is to avenge his wife and community taken by this cog of the Roman Empire. And here he is delivered to you, and what does Lucius do? Chooses mercy. Why? What would it take to change his mind? In this moment, he realizes that if he kills his man and gets what he wanted the most, he will inadvertently be feeding the machine, the corrupted, death-hungry, bloodthirsty monster that weak and corrupt men have turned the Roman Empire into. By killing Acacius, he feeds this monster. The same monster that really took his family and friends, prioritizes conquest over feeding its own. The monster that perverted the honor that built the Roman Empire. The saying, be careful what you wish for, you just might get it, is played out here incredibly well. Here it is, what you wanted the most. All you have to do in return is to partake in feeding the monster. It's a selling of the soul, the deal with the devil kind of thing. And in this moment, we see character growth. He chooses not to. In this moment, Lucius realizes that he resembles more of a cog, perpetuating the very evil that's taken everything from him. And rather than satisfying his ambitions for revenge, he'd rather give them the middle finger and not partake in their madness. By doing this, he retains his soul and honors his wife and family and community more than so killing Acacius. After the Praetorian Guard shoots him with a dozen arrows, this causes a riot amongst the people. In the midst of the chaos, Denzel manipulates the more retarded emperor to kill his brother. After doing so, retard emperor appoints his monkey as his counsel, and Denzel as third in command. This is another excellent scene that is completely underappreciated by the audience, especially because of how well it parallels the modern West of today. The lunacy of this action isn't questioned by the senators despite their obvious disapproval. I love this because it speaks volumes to the degrees people in power would keep up a charade for the sake of avoiding conflict or controversy. If you think we've progressed much since then may I remind you of the time the Democrats voted in a vegetable for president, assuring us he is of sound mind.
Eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID. With dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Hell yeah, Democrats. YOLO. Exemplified by the senator's cowardice to speak up against this action. The empire burns, the people are hungry, and all the managerial class does is focus on conquest, games, parties. And there is no better visual representation of their folly than this. Naming and appointing a monkey for counsel. There is a predisposition of wisdom given to those in power. The notion that to lead something as great as a country or an empire takes wisdom, knowledge, and understanding that is above the average person. And yet, the dumbest of the average could still realize that appointing a monkey in such a high position is not a good idea. And yet, all these senators with this so-called wisdom go along with it and applaud it. If you think that would never happen today, then may I remind you, cue another Biden clip.
We're going to change the course of the country and, quite frankly, the world.
5 minutes later.
America's dead.
The plot continues. Lucius gets a message out to Acacius' men to come to his aid. Afterwards, he and his fellow gladiators fight against the Praetorian Guard tasked to kill him, his mother, and all the senators involved in the plot to overthrow the dueling emperors. In the midst of this chaos, Denzel kills retarded emperor and then rides to stop the approaching army. Lucius catches up to him at the gates of Rome, the very same gates he entered through earlier as a slave, caged and chained. Above the gates rests a statue of Romulus, Remus, and the she-wolf, making this the ideal spot for the two to battle it out. If you know the parable of Romulus, Remus, and the she-wolf, you completely understand why. If you don't, then have no fear, you uncultured swine. Clash is here to tell you. This fable is the cornerstone of the city of Rome, thus the entire empire by extent. It's the tale of two twin brothers. Their father, Arius, the god of war, and mother, Rhea Silva, the Vestal virgin sworn to celibacy. But when the god of war shows up, them panties drop. That's a Roman proverb. It's carved in stone somewhere. These two were ordered to be killed because their whore mother broke her vow. To save them, they were put in a basket and sent down river, where a she-wolf found them and nursed them until a shepherd and his wife found them and raised them. Romulus and Remus then plotted to build a city, but the two argued about where to build it. Remus, the mouthy bitch that he is, mocked Romulus's ideas for the city, so Romulus, like any brother, killed him for it. If you think that's a bit of an overreaction, then you've clearly never had to share a she-wolf tit with a mouthy-ass brother. Oh, how lucky some of you are. Romulus then builds the city, calls it Rome, and now every man on the planet thinks about this place at least once or twice a week. At the gates where our two characters meet, on the symbolic cornerstone that the city was built on, these two characters, one representing the Roman dream, uncorrupted, inspiring, and the other the product of its evils, now in power. With two armies watching on both sides. This is symbolic poetry. This isn't just a fight between two men. This is a fight between the two futures of the possible Roman Empire, which way it will go. The stage is set. The battle for nobility, honor, and legacy versus vengeance and the pursuit of power. Holy smokes. Remember how I said it over-delivers in some aspects and completely underperforms in others? Well, this is it. What a great place to wrap up this film. These ideologies clash under the fable that built and defined the Roman Empire. With Lucius winning here, it symbolizes a rebirth of the individual, the dream, the empire. And if Denzel were to win here, it would symbolize the corruption and wickedness continuing. It over-delivered on setting up this scene and unfortunately completely botched the landing. What ensues later is one of the dullest, most boring, and unbelievable fight scenes I've ever seen. They could have done it better. Nevertheless, Lucius wins, all is good, and that's pretty much Gladiator 2. The brilliance and the symbology here completely overlooked by the audiences everywhere and completely overshadowed by all the, shit. And what a damn shame. Overall, it's a worthy successor. If this film would have came out 5 or 6 years after its original, it would have been far better received than it has been today. It sort of stands on its own 2 feet if you really consider all the things that I've mentioned. But if you're one of the people that can't overlook the sharks, the monkeys, or Denzel's awful performance, I get it. I can't hold that against you. All this in mind, it is also worth noting that Christopher Nolan did say that this was his favorite film of the year. When a cinematic giant like that says something about a film, it's worth noting. But what are your thoughts? Did I convince you to give it a second chance? Did you already love it and now love it even more? Leave your comments down below and I'll see you in the next video, where I dive into the importance of good culture. Now like and subscribe, and I will leave you with this.